Hi friends, welcome to my 322 time capsule. This league I played Ward Loop, and it was a lot of fun. As you can see, it was a fairly high investment character, so we're gonna go clear up this Elderslayers real quick, and then we're going to do a regular Sirus and an Uber Sirus, and then maybe a map, we'll see, but just a few things to show off the build, and then I will go over my gear and talents and the other stuff that I did in the league, all of that. So if you're not familiar with Ward Loop, the basic concept is using self-cast damage taken to trigger spells, and those spells do a lot of damage. The reason that we can get away with this is because there's a mechanic from a flask called Olrath's Resolve that makes Ward into essentially sort of an ablative shield. It just reduces the amount of damage you take from any given self-hit. So what ends up happening essentially is that like most of the damage is prevented as by the ward, but counted as a hit, and as a result, so you can see like I have a bunch, and then when I activate the flask, I have a lot less. And then when skeletons start dying, I will start casting spells. So they recently patched, this is the last day of the league, they recently patched the client, and so I'm having, again, some significant perf problems, which are amplified by the fact that Ward Loop is very intense on your GPU. You're just generating a lot of projectiles and everything else. So apologies in advance if you see like shader cache spiking or all of that. But you can see, like, I'm just running around and damage is happening. Like my RF isn't even fully resolved. Okay, there we go. Yeah. So anyways, we're going to do this Elderslayers and hopefully get a Drox. If not, I have another Drox map that we can do, but that's the gist of it. So you can see, they're like, they died. Whoops. Well, yeah. That was awkward. Oh, shaders. You're so fun. Yeah, boss. Did not see anything, but it's fine. It's fine. This is... I feel guilty doing this, so sort of scuffed and ad hoc, but this is the last day before the league ends, and so I've got to... Future me would be sad and angry that I didn't do it.
Give yourself to the void.
Hey, I can see the boss.
Until next time.
As you can see, it's a little easier when you can see the things that you're fighting. But we do a lot of damage. So, anyways, we didn't get a Drox, so let's go do our Drox map real quick. And apologies in advance, I'm probably not going to pick up much loot here. I'm going to blast this so that we don't spend forever and a day on this video. If you haven't gotten one of the Timekeeper's hideouts, go buy a Timekeeper's hideout. It's amazing. Or, not hideout, map device. It's probably one of the best things that I've invested in PoE this season. Highly, highly, highly recommend. Very fun. Shader compilation. Yeah. But so the basic gist of this is we get a bunch of auto self-cast Frostbolts, and Creeping Frost, and all sorts of other stuff that are wonderful. Run past all of this. Our flasks are auto-firing. We've got like automatic progenesis. We've got a ton of recovery through recoup and other stuff because all of these self-hits, the way that we're sort of making them work is we have a bunch of life recoup. And that... Yeah, I don't know what is going on. This is rough. Oh man. Okay. And then, so we run around automatically doing tons and tons of damage, and then if we run into a boss enemy, we can put Frostbolt on him, and he will die faster. We can put Frostbolt on him. Hey, okay, cool. So yeah, that's the gist of it. So let's go and do a Sirus, and I'm probably gonna stand in the interest of Sirus for a bit because, as you can see, like we're having the shader issues. So you can see, this is just a normal Sirus first. We don't have Perfect Storm yet. And this will just sort of give you a calibration or an idea of what the build is capable of. So yeah, this build has been very fun. I really enjoyed it a lot, and I invested probably, I think it's like 590 divines was the total cost here. So build is fairly endgame. Obviously it's not like a true amazing, like perfect version of the build. Like there are people who've put 3, 4, 5 mirrors into this build, and I'm nowhere close to that. So keep that in mind. This is sort of a mid-tier version of the cast while damage taken build, but it was very fun to build the character and sort of spend the season dorking around with it. In terms of the play experience, it's great to play, basically because it's just like super high damage, and you run around. Occasionally, if you stand in the degen or something like that, you will die, but for the most part you just run around and collect loot, and you zoom pretty fast thanks to automatic flask. Obviously, you know, it's not like Deadeye or something like that, but you've got Tailwind, you're pretty fast. Geez, what the heck is going on? Sorry, sorry about me just sort of being like consistently mystified by the textures being terrible. I don't know. I haven't done anything weird with my character, I swear. But yeah, so you run around, you collect loot, and then anytime you have to zone, that's where you have to activate your flask and do a weapon swap to sort of start the loop going. So you can see I start the flask, I hit my weapon swap keybind, and you could see down there that my abilities changed because I hit the weapon swap keybind, and then that's what it summons sort of things that die, and then that's what starts the loop. So now our loop is starting, and remember this is just regular Sirus, so not much going on here per se. But obviously if I stand in the degen, so bad. But you can see how forgiving that was, right? Like, you know, I was like I was standing in one of these guys and my health was like just going down a little rather than something like that. You've probably already also noticed that this build can be a bit challenging to play just because there's so much going on the screen, right? I have the Frostbolt, the red lines, that is the Frostbolt MTX, that is significantly easier to see. If I switch that off, the build is substantially harder to play. You also have to turn the sound down pretty low, because otherwise you will like hurt your ears after a while. I've got it quite low in the background, and it's probably still annoying for you all. So that's really the downside of the build, is that there's a lot of game information that is hidden by all of the visual noise and clutter. And so it can just be very hard to process what is going on. Yeah, I was standing in degen that I didn't see again. Yeah, but anyways, here I believe we're entering phase 3 now. Or will be soon. Yeah, his heart is alive. God, remember when I did this first on the Guardian all these ages ago? And oh man, if past Owen could see me now. Wow, I'm surprised the sync was highlighted. Well, yeah, so that was regular Sirus, and so you could see, despite standing in the fire and all sorts of other silly stuff, I didn't manage to die. So now we're gonna give Uber a shot. I almost certainly will die here since everything is amped up quite a bit on Uber Sirus. But yeah, overall build is very fun. Highly recommend messing around with it. There's a fantastic community resource at cwdt.info. Cast while damage taken. And those folks have really done their work, and so you can see this is what I was doing for money this league. I was just running Uber Shaper over and over again and getting his unique jewel. So, and then Wandering Path Quant mapping when I was not doing that. Growing Hordes, Wandering Path, just basically like massively quantized maps. But yeah, yeah, I've got Unidentified Sublime Visions, funded most of this build in conjunction with various other like fragments and things like that. So very much just sort of an easy bossing loop of buy Shaper frags, kill Uber Shaper, sell the resulting Shaper frag drops for approximately double what you pay for the entry ticket at the cost of like a 3-minute boss fight. So it was very consistent, very easy money. Well, easy money after you've invested. I think I started doing it at like around a 200 divine-ish character, so it took a bit to get going, per se. But yeah. So let's go try the Uber version. And as I mentioned, I will probably die. But it'll be fun. And then we can talk about the gear, talk about the Atlas strategy, all the other stuff like that.
Did you really think this would work?
It's still thinking.
Please, we want to help you. Don't do anything hasty.
Destroying you is as easy as flicking a pest.
Yeah. Overall, this league was,
You want the Atlas?
I would say, it was solid. Like I really enjoy auto battlers. I love teamfight tactics. I didn't really feel like the Trial of the Ancestors ended up feeling like an auto battler per se. I was doing most of the work, and that maybe just is like the way that this character is constructed, right? You know, automatic damage, like just runs around and murders everything and knocks back everything. So in that regard, I guess. But the league mechanic was lucrative. It was interesting. It offered a change of pace. It had a really cool mechanic that I'll discuss when I'm talking about the talent tree, called tattoos. So, all in all, no complaints. And I think for most sort of trade league players, this league sort of ended up being Sanctum 2.0 rather than Trial of the Ancients. Other than like, hey, you can use the money that you got out of Sanctum to buy tattoos. Whoops. Okay, so yeah, I stood in the orbs there. Don't do that. That's bad for you. Bad for your health. I'll be honest, I forgot Uber Sirus spawned those. We start our loop. Just fire running. And re-enter the fight. Okay, so even though I died there, I had phased him, which is fairly funny.
What's the point?
Okay, so waiting.
Be utterly annihilated.
Where's our shadow? You gonna come down?
Obliteration.
Really interesting enough to warrant all this.
Okay, phase 2. Let's not stand in the let's not stand in the degen, he says, as he stands in the degen. Yeah. This is, well, at least it will be fun to look back at. Maybe I was optimistic. Particularly after I was having so many problems. So ordinarily, if you're not being a doofus like me, that's not as much of a problem. I'm just having brain day and not seeing big red glowy things on the ground.
Your lives are meaningless.
Yep, did it again. God dang it. I would be so amused if I actually managed to brick this. Despite, like, infinite autocast AoE damage. That would actually be extreme.
Can I not have but a moment's respite?
I'm not actually sure what phase he's in. I think he's in air phase. Whoop.
Rain on stars. Creation.
There we go. Okay, now come down.
Continuing to exist.
Let's stand over here, maybe. Right, well. Need his donut. And so you can see, like, as soon as I find him, he faces. Oh man, I am just, yeah. This is what happens. I believe this is what our friends who play Teamfight Tactics call tilt. Just making silly mistakes you don't have to make because one thing went wrong and then another thing went wrong and it's all on video. I guess theoretically I could just, not. I could do it over, but that wouldn't be authentic to the experience. So let's
Obliteration.
keep it in the tape.
Cosmos. You are nothing.
You gonna come down, buddy?
Be utterly annihilated.
There he goes. Okay. Round 3. So if you've seen this before, I believe we did it with the Mana Bond character. There's like 6 beams instead of 4 if he gets to that. Yeah. Nope. Okay, well. There we go. So, yeah. That was Uber Sirus. In deeply embarrassing fashion, but we got there. So yeah. I guess I will talk about the build now. So that's about it. Oh man. Already been 20 minutes. So let's see here. This is, you can see here, so that we're playing a Scion, and the important part really, so this I have a jewel that allocates Pathfinder, but we've also selected Deadeye. And then we go up for the Witch for reflected elemental damage, because you know we're sort of spamming uncontrolled elemental damage everywhere. So if we don't prevent that, things go very poorly for us. So the actual tree itself, so this is the spell suppression version of the tree. You can see that like most of our character is based around jewel sockets in varying capacities. And because we're a Scion, we can do this, right? Like we've got this whole second arc. And then the other thing that is really interesting about this is we have tattoos. So what tattoos do is let you replace a small node on the tree. So like something that would have been like plus 10 strength, or in this case plus 10 dexterity. You get to replace it with something like flask effect duration. Or let's find one of the like, or in this case I did 4 all attributes to solve a problem. Cold resistance. More flask. I think most of mine are flask. Here's like I didn't replace this one, I guess. Yeah, and increased global defenses is one that makes like setting up this build. There's a mark effect one. But basically like increased global defenses modifies your ward value, which then changes sort of what you can do in that regard. So you can see here, like I'm getting Scion from, or Pathfinder from Forbidden Flash and Flame that allocate it, which is why I have Deadeye selected as my actual tree, because I get both Deadeye and Pathfinder because of these jewels. So real quick, a tour of the jewels. We got an Unnatural Instinct here, which is giving us a bunch of, let's see here, what was it that was the really important part up here? Oh yeah, it was the life recoup. So it's giving us these guys. Right, so we get our life recoup here, as well as a ring. And then there's a bunch of other just useful stuff in these small passives that we get. And then we have sort of, so this is the kind of jewel that we're looking for, right? Ideally you would have triple crit plus something. Not all mine are that good. That's one of the places where you can just sort of throw arbitrary money at it and keep going. You really need flask charges with this build, so you'll see a lot of things that actively travel for flask charge nodes as we explore the tree. 30% increased defenses while wielding a staff is huge, because the staff is sort of mandatory for scaling our damage, and so this gets us to that magic ward value. And then obviously like this is just one of the most absurd nodes on the tree in terms of like raw damage. Our large clusters, you know, we're doing cold damage, so obviously like you want a cold damage cluster, and then the usual sort of sadist is incredible, and you want pen. Here, these are our 2 dust jewels. So 2 dust are the things that are causing you to summon skeletons, or your skeletons basically like expire really quickly, like they just sort of show up and crumble into dust. That's the whole thing, right? And so we just scale the crumbling effect of the skeleton incredibly quickly with these, and then that causes damage to ourselves and continues to perpetuate the loop. We have a medium cluster. This looks simple and boring. This actually took me a very long time to craft. A lot of sad misses with augmentations to get there. But basically what this does is lets us maintain these flasks using Balbala. There's my other 2 dust. And then continuing the tour, we have, you can see, like just another nice rare jewel. This was another nice, this one I was particularly happy with because we got the mana cost there. So Sublime Vision, this is like 30 or 40% of the damage of the build. So we get Hatred for free. More on that when I do a tour of the skills. And then this forces Brittle on the target, which is base crit chance. With my character, I have like 2.5% base crit chance, which just means that like my spells always crit for all intents and purposes. And because we're not using other auras anyway, because we're making hatred free, that, you know, the disadvantage is not a disadvantage at all. Let's see here. So this is where mana recoup comes in. This is, again, like all of these spells take full resources to cast. You know, we are casting multiple 6-link spells every second, like, you know, five to 6 spells triggering every time we trigger a cast while damage taken. So we need the recoup to sort of keep the loop going, and so we just have like 20% recoup there. Skill effect duration. This is more ways that our skeletons expire. And then Storm Shroud. There's a bunch of resist nodes in this area, and so Storm Shroud lets us get to full ailment immunity, so that this character is fully ailment immune because of that. Continuing on, we've got a Watcher's Eye. So this is cold damage and penetration. This is just like, you know, obviously, you know, like I mentioned, I played this character a bit. This was a fairly expensive outlay, but it's been really nice. The double perfect divine was also satisfying. This is more of our flask effect. So here, some versions of the build don't take this and use other, where's the other flask nodes? These guys, right? Like, so they use these instead. It really just depends on what you need in terms of, do you need charges gained? Do you need duration? Some builds use 2 of these jewels instead of 1. Really just sort of up to you. But this, because we have full spell suppression, we're using like Mage Bane to turn our spare decks into spell suppression. We're taking these spell suppression nodes here. So this is the other aspect of the build that is super interesting. We need to keep Olroth's Resolve up forever, right? Like if I activate Olroth's Resolve, it will just stay up forever. And Babala is how we do it. So we're getting 4 charges every 5 seconds from our empty flask slot, and then we are scaling flask charges gained from all of these other various effects. You know, Druidic Rite, the gear when I go through the gear, and so yeah. So this is just some crit scaling here. Health, and you can see like my Balbala has flask charges gained on some of these nodes, so this is increasing the effect of my shock. Like, this is flask charges gained, this is flask charges gained. Stuff like that. And then we have some tattoos, mark effect, flask duration, global defenses. So one of the really interesting things about this build is that like you have to tune exactly the right amount of chaos res, because if you have too much, your loop stops working. More sustain nodes, mark effect, and then this is how we get frenzy charges, which are really nice for our lazy person's phase run. And then here we've got Storm Rider. So this is how we get our power charges. We are shocking things all of the time, so our power charges just like basically always show up. And then these are not sort of completely standard. These are just sort of like, I was looking for more damage and more ways to scale the build, and this was a good compromise. But so we're using projectile mediums to just sort of make our lives easier. And so you get Pierce. So we have 2 Pierces in maps. And then obviously the Forbidden Flesh and Flame that I talked about. So that's the tree. Oh yeah, and we allocate Whispers of Doom because we are automatically applying elemental weakness, and then you frostbite things when you're fighting them for any length of time. I didn't do a great job demonstrating that. So yeah, in terms of gear, so every ward loop build starts with Annihilating Light, pure and simple. Like it just does so much damage. And then inside the Annihilating Light, this is where our sort of utility loop is. So we're Creeping Frost and Freezing Pulse. And then we're generating more power charges from crits here. And then we take this is the thing that is running these spells, the divergent cast while damage taken. So like when our skeletons expire, this happens. And then we cull, and we're applying Bonechill. So a lot of debuffs here. And then we have our loop. So the hat is where the magic happens, as it were. So first and foremost, like essentially you are summoning a skeleton. The skeleton needs to die very quickly. And so you can see the base duration is 20 seconds. I think our duration is like 0.2 or something after everything. But then this triggers off cast damage taken as well, right? So it summons a skeleton, and then the skeleton instantly dies, and we take damage from Heartbound Loop, and it'll fire a sniper's mark, and it dies again. So basically, like you can see, like here, like 40% reduced minion duration is shrinking that 20 down to 12 just by itself, right? Our neck. So this one, basically just you want crit multi, and then wow, I never finished qualitying that. Learn things every day. And then plus cold skills and all skills. This applies basically just we're scaling gem levels in multiple ways, like Skin of the Lord scales gem levels, all of that. So this is scaling gem levels, and then increased effect of our shock, like non-damaging ailments act as a damage mult for us, and proj speed, because proj speed is nice. Heartbound Loop, this is the thing that sort of runs the entire loop. You know, you take 420 physical damage whenever you die, whenever a minion dies, and we're summoning a bunch of skeletons that are dying. And the fire damage corruption here is to trigger our cluster jewel. Not much to be said about the Skin of the Lords, other than that it has glancing blows on it, so whenever I block something, I'm blocking much more frequently, but I'm taking less damage. So it helps, along with Progenesis, at not dying to random things. I obviously didn't do a great job of showcasing it there, but there we go. In terms of our main link, we have, again, cast while damage taken. Like, this is triggering every time we take any sort of damage. This happens. Then we were firing Ice Spears. And these are the red things that you saw there. That's sort of our primary damage. And then we have GMP. You can see I had the worst possible result on corrupting, and lost my 10% of my quality, which was rough. But even then, it was still the best possible gem to put in terms of damage increase. And then just increased crit damage. Empower, which beefs all of these up. Again, we're scaling gem levels heavily, and Ellie Focus. This ring is a little non-standard. Normally people use an unset, but I was lazy and didn't mind giving up the skill slot, because normally people put RF in the unset. But yeah, so we just have an absolute metric ton of resistances. This is essentially sort of single-handedly solving our resist problem. And then double recoup, which is really nice for maintaining the process throughout the loop. Oh yeah. These, again, like, these items themselves are not, like, super gnarly to craft. It's basically just spamming dense fossils until you get a bunch of T1 ward values, essentially. Like, these are like T2, T1, T2. So basically you just get to a very high ward value, and then you use Eldritch Chaos to finish the suffixes. Like, you can see this one is T2, T3, like, and a crafted. Like, you just need enough that you can finish your character for all intents and purposes. And all three of the ward pieces are like that. So actually, I crafted, I didn't craft the belt, but I crafted pretty much everything else this league, which was a lot of fun. Normally I just buy things, but this time around I decided to be stubborn, and so I bought crafting materials instead. But yeah, again, you can see here, you know, tier 1, tier 3, tier 1 to get the ward. We're applying pen, we're applying unnerve. As far as our skill gems, this is where the self chaos damage comes from. So the skeleton dies, heartbound loop triggers, it triggers forbidden right damage. That's why we need to tune our chaos res. But that forbidden right damage then runs all of this other stuff. And so that's why this one is just a level 12 rather than the level 20s like all the others. And then Flame Dash, Righteous Fire. So these belts are a nightmare to craft. Sorry, my nose is itching. Apology. And the future viewers who had to listen to me snorf. But you want reduced flask charges used, cooldown recovery rate, and flask effect duration, and you need all of those to be as sort of good as they can possibly be, because you're trying to hit 27% cooldown reduction total across your character, in addition to a just absurd amount of reduced flask charges used and flask effect duration without ever getting any flask effect increase. And so if you get any sort of flask effect, that actually bricks Olroth's resolve and makes it worse. So we can't have that. And then this one, this is just how we're running our Storm Shroud, like chance to avoid being shocked, chance to avoid being shocked, and then there's a little bit on the tree to get to maximum. There. This is our hatred. Again, like it's the only aura we're running. It's free because of Divergent and Turtle Blessing. So you get the Sublime Vision interaction, which is really nice. And then our curse and phase run, just for moving around. Like we're generating, because of the mark on hit node, we're generating charges that can be consumed by phase run. Yeah, that's. Oh right, I didn't cover the flasks. So Olroth's is the engine of the build. I've talked about it a bunch. But basically, it just gives you ward, and then ward doesn't break when you're hit, and you pass. So yeah, and then Quicksilver. Again, I'm just using to offset the penalty here. We need a crap ton of elemental resistances. This is just using elemental on the suffix. Like optimized versions of this character use a different necklace and do stat stacking instead, and get a bunch of penetration. But I'm not doing that. And then we just got a Progenesis and Dying Sun for extra projectiles. So yeah, I think that's about the gist of it. Let's corrupt our Hands of the High Templar and call it a day. Oh right, I didn't talk about Atlas strategy this league. Atlas strategy this league, I did Wandering Path with Searing Exarch, Eldritch Altars, Delirium. So like I think I have like 60 or 70% to spawn a Delirium Orb. Harvest. So basically, because there's a bunch of Quant from Growing Hordes plus Wandering Path and various nodes, so that like you just have a ton of Quant, which means you get a ton of free harvest juice. Well, free harvest juice when one of them spawns in your map through nodes like this, right? You know, you're getting 6% Quant, whatever. You got all the item quantity wheel, and then Beyond. So Beyond is not ordinarily on the map device. But if you use 7th Gate and select all of these, which we're actually taking somewhat advantage of it. But if you take 7th Gate and then use Beyond, like you can see, if I put in a map rather than these guys, right? The only crafting option that I don't have a bunch of free things saved up for is Beyond, because Beyond just gives you absolute ludicrous amounts more monsters, and it's also consistent income because every map you get a boss that then has a chance to drop tainted currency. So if we look at my exotic tab, you can see I have a whole mess of currency that's just sort of waiting to sell. Oh, and the other thing I did tons and tons of Polaric Invitation. So I'll do one real quick here, because
Can
What the
I not
heck?
have
I
but
can
a moment's respite?
allocate. Why not? Alright, this is impulsive, so I don't have it prepared. And so one of the downsides of this build is there are a fair number of keystones that brick it, right? And so you can see that's one of them. Less recovery rate will brick your effect. So this one should be fine. You can see it's still gnarly, but it's fine. But anyways, I did a ton of these because they have, when they are sufficiently high level, they actually have a very good chance at dropping Eldritch Currency. And Eldritch Currency was both something I needed for crafting all of my gear, and also very valuable this league. And so a lot of people really don't like doing this boss, for any number of reasons. But when it is literal seconds, you can see, like, she doesn't even get to cast a spell, but also doesn't drop loot sometimes. Hello, cat. But yeah, that's the long of it. I recognize that this has been 40 minutes of me dirtling around and talking, but yeah, in general, Trail of the Ancients was a fun league. I didn't interact with the league mechanic all that much. I guess I can go visit the Halls of the Dead real quick. But the basic conceit of this is you did a little tournament with 5 or 6 auto battles, of which you were sort of the star and the driving force. Each of the things in the tournament So the conceit here is you're in the afterlife, and there are a bunch of the gods that you have, in many cases, actually sent here into the afterlife because you killed them in the campaign, arguing with each other. And then you do a little fight. Oh, what the hell? I can do one. Sure.
The newcomer brings
And so we place
to the field. An interesting
characters.
strategy. Opposite,
So I'm just sort of like yeeting stuff onto here, but like basically like flankers will go and destroy the opposing totems. Attackers will fight the other enemies. These guys will interrupt if someone attacks your totems. Start up a loop here, and then just sort of murder everything. I guess I technically should have put Frostbite on that, but then, and you can see here I'm channeling on this totem, and then if the health up there at the top gets to 0, it dies. However, the NPCs can also jump on me and murder me, and I will respawn after a second. Oh, let's see here.
Can I not have but a moment's respite?
So I'll come back, right? And so channeling on the totems becomes sort of a dangerous thing. And you, generally speaking, rely on your NPCs to do it. Because the opposing NPCs have a lot of like very hostile effects. But you run around, you channel down the totems, and so like most people just used Void Sphere. They just had like a 4-link or a 6-link Void Spear, and then just like the entirety of the enemy team was just floating around and bouncing. Man, you are really insistent. Come here, cat. Rawr. It's okay, G. But yeah. All in all, bonus purring cat. I had a lot of fun with the league. I had a lot of fun with the character. Highly recommend playing it. I think the 323 changes will make it a little tricky, but it shouldn't be dead. It probably will just do like 40 million DPS instead of 80 million DPS or whatever this thing does. So yeah. Anyways, that's all for me. I will return to the living and free you all from the grasp of a self-indulgent 45-minute long summary. Take care, friends. Bye-bye.